Welcome back. Well, let's return to the breaking news that I mentioned at the start of the show, that the Albanese government has done a massive backflip. They said that they opposed Peter Dutton's idea for mandatory minimum sentences. So this is a minimum jail term for those who commit anti-Semitic attacks or terror offences. Albanese opposed it. And now, in breaking news tonight, Tony Burke is introducing that legislation to the House. Let's bring in now Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Paterson. James, what's your reaction to this capitulation by Labor?
Well, capitulation is the only way to describe it, Shari, a total and utter capitulation. It was only 2 days ago that senior Albanese government ministers were publicly dismissing the idea of the need for mandatory minimum sentences. And in fact, on Tuesday in the Senate, they voted against a motion that I moved to call for the introduction of mandatory minimum sentences. This is another example of Peter Dutton leading, of seeing the problems in our country, of identifying the solutions, of calling for them, and of pressuring the Albanese government into very reluctantly acting to address them. I mean, it's been very clear in this country since this anti-Semitism crisis has become a terrorism crisis and got out of control on Anthony Albanese's watch, that we needed strong action to send a strong signal to deter people who are responsible for these attacks, and that only mandatory minimum sentences would be necessary, would be sufficient to achieve that. But after Peter Dutton and I announced that we would introduce them on the 20th of January, the Prime Minister dismissed the idea as being a distraction and unnecessary.
Look, I also want to ask you about the biggest news of the day right around the world, Trump's stunning plan to fix the Gaza Strip. Let's have a quick look at what else Trump had to say on this today.
Do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region.
James, Trump is right, isn't he? He says we can't go back. It'll be another 100-year cycle of bloodshed and terrorism. Isn't that right?
Well, there's no question, Shari, that the status quo has been a disaster for Palestinians and a disaster for Israelis, and there is no positive future for either if Hamas remains in charge in Gaza. And very sadly, they do appear to be regaining control in Gaza since the ceasefire was put into effect. And so we do need to think about the best way to resolve that and ensure a peaceful future for both the people of the region. It's not our policy, as you know, to go down this path. We have a two-state solution that we support and has supported for a long time in this country. It's actually the Labor Party that's walked away from that and proposes to unilaterally recognise a Palestinian state without the agreement of the Israeli government, without any peace negotiations. We don't think that's the right approach.
We haven't seen the detail of Trump's plan yet. I had Sharon Haskell. She is the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister for Israel. She was on earlier. She said we are still to see the detail in the coming weeks. But do you agree with the principle that there does need to be a new external governing body in Gaza?
Well, the rebuilding project in Gaza is going to be an enormous task, and it will need an international coalition of states, particularly those from the region. We do want to see leadership from Arab states in the region recognising their responsibility and interest in this issue. Of course, Israel will have to be satisfied with those arrangements, and American leadership will be absolutely essential to getting this done, because what we should hope to see out of this is peace and security for the people of Israel and peace and security for the people of Gaza and for Palestinian people. And it is not going to happen just by letting it to continue as it has over the last 20 years under Hamas's terrible rule in that region.
No, absolutely. Look, in question time today, it was brutal for the Prime Minister. The coalition grilled him over the explosives-filled caravan. Why didn't he know about this? Have a look.
The Prime Minister has been embarrassed because he wasn't advised by the police, because they were worried about him leaking the information ahead of any action by the police.
When was the Prime Minister first informed of the planned mass casualty terror attack against Sydney's Jewish community?
The Prime Minister is studiously avoiding answering the question. If he doesn't want to be relevant to the question, he can sit down.
James, how concerned are you that the Prime Minister evidently wasn't told about a potential mass casualty event potentially for 7 days.
Sure, if that turns out to be the case, that will be a travesty and a shocking breakdown of our national security architecture under the Prime Minister's watch. How he has allowed to get it to be so bad that our police and intelligence agencies don't feel compelled to bring news like this to him urgently to inform him so that he can take decisive action to protect our country is a real indictment on his leadership. He should have been driving this from the beginning. There should have been rolling National Security Committee of Cabinet meetings. He should have been demanding answers from our police and intelligence agencies, and they should have been keeping him in the loop because they knew he would want to know about what was going on. And it speaks to his leadership that that clearly appears not to have been happening.
Yeah, it's beyond comprehension how, you know, if it would have been executed, a terror attack that would have had a 40-metre blast wave, and yet the Prime Minister didn't know about it. There almost should be an inquiry into what has gone on here, because this is a major failure of national security. It's a major failure to protect Australian citizens. James Patterson.
That's exactly right.
Really? Do you think there should be an inquiry?
I strongly support an independent inquiry by an eminent national security expert to get to the bottom of why the Prime Minister didn't know, or when he did know, and what he did about it.
All right. James Patterson, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.